Hey, everybody, welcome to the Typology Membership Podcast. As you know, I am Ian Cron. I'm here joined by my counterpart, Anthony Skinner, and we are so excited today. Woo-woo! Last time we were together, we spoke about the false stories that each type tells themselves in childhood and then brings with them into adulthood. And of course, what serves you as a little person does not serve you as an adult. And so this week...
Well, let's just say that was an amazing town hall, right?
Oh my gosh.
That was so rich. I would say the last two, you and I have talked so much about hearing everyone's stories and just connecting with each other.
Yeah, you know, I'm so impressed with the degree of vulnerability now and the comfort we have with each other, and you know, the fact that I'm starting to know people's names. You know, I think about Peggy and Trisha and Hudson and Joey. What's that? Oh, Jesse.
Yeah.
You know, I just love that we're becoming a family and a circle of wisdom for each other.
I love it too. Well, so let's get to this week's podcast and homework.
Yeah. So last time we spoke about the false stories and we got very specific, right? Now people are sharing the names of the titles that they give to their old false stories.
Right.
And they had opportunity to explain the genesis of those stories. Like, where did they begin? And we began to ask the question, you know, how do these stories still serve you, right? Well, and this week I want to talk about the true story of each type. And then as homework, I want people to tell us the name of the new story.
Yes.
Let's leave that out until the end, maybe.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think you can tee it up, and then you can talk about like your false story title and your true story title. So I think it's all right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So what did I just
So say the true story, and then you can just move on, and I can edit that.
And so this week we're going to be talking about the true story of every type, and we're going to ask people as a homework assignment to title the story they want to live in now.
I love this, and I want to say you've made this point with me multiple times. Like, you love the Enneagram, but you really want to, you know, harness this tool to use it as, you know, a transformational tool. So, and this is part of that process, right? Moving to the true story.
Absolutely. So you want to start with improvers?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think improvers can find a home in the larger story of God, right? The grace-filled story. When they realize that, you know, God's love for them is not dependent on their perfecting themselves, others, and the world, right? And because that's the underlying premise of that old, broken narrative, right? And I think they'll know that's happened when they move from the passion of anger to the virtue of serenity, right?
That's good.
And I think that happens when we accept that the world is perfectly imperfect.
Oh, I love that.
And that so are they.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That they can be both riven and redeemed. I love the word riven, so I'm going to use it there, right? Broken, severed, right? And so I think in the book I talk about that great quote from Julia Child, who I think was a 1 on the Enneagram, and she says, if you're alone in the kitchen and you drop the lamb, you can always just pick it up. Who's gonna know? Right. I mean, you know, it's like, hey, relax, take a breath. Yeah. If you make a mistake, don't worry.
Oh, that's good.
You know, don't worry. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe on the town hall, we can talk about strategies for improvers and for all of us, because we all have inner critics, for navigating that internal self-condemning voice.
Ooh, I like that.
Or the voice that is just driving us, right?
And you have some little tools that you use for that we've talked about in the past that we can cover in the town hall. We can talk
more about that. So I think for helpers, the Enneagram 2s, when they are living in the story of God, I think they begin to realize that in the past, they have oftentimes used giving as a strategy to win the approval and the love of others, right? So that's not altruistic giving. That's a kind of a calculated giving, right? But when they come into that new story, they wake up from the trance of pride, right, which is their passion, and they learn to practice, obviously, the virtue of humility. So it's this ability to freely admit that they, like everyone else, have needs, and they need help, like everybody else, and they don't have the resources to help everybody else all the time, right? Yeah. So, I think I said something on the podcast last week, on the town hall last week, that really stuck to me, right? And it was something like, you have the freedom,
the right to ask.
Right. You have the right to ask for 100% of your needs from 100% of the people, 100% of the time. Now, interestingly, on Instagram, someone kind of like pushed back on that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And the key here is to understand that while that's true, you can't expect that you will get 100% of your needs met 100% of the time by 100% of the people.
Right. Which is not what you're saying. That's not what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. In fact, there are some things you can ask for in life that others should not, will not, or cannot actually give you. Yeah. Right? So I think it's also being open to that. And because here's the deal. Sometimes, if we're honest with ourselves, we often ask others to do for us what we should do for ourselves. Like we can't expect someone else to give us a good self-esteem.
Right.
We actually should not actually expect anyone else to make us happy. Right. Like I've seen that ruin marriages.
Right.
Like no one else is responsible. You are the only person in the world who is responsible for your own happiness. Period. You start relying on other people to make you happy, that's a recipe for disaster. Right?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about performers.
Okay.
These threes on the Enneagram, obviously, when they get healing, when they find healing from their broken story, they really begin to give up this striving to achieve in order to win the admiration of the crowd. So these new storied, and I like that phrase, new storied performers, they no longer rely on others to validate them or to affirm their value. Right? That's something that they can find inside. So moving from the passion of deceit to authenticity means that they no longer have to present or project an image that will win people over. They just don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
And authenticity is a little tricky, right? Because it's like, well, how do I know when I'm, it's like,
Right. Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Fours?
The best number. All right.
I wonder if we talk about your story here at all? Like give an example?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Obviously, and I've shared this before, that I just grew up with a sense that I was unredeemably deficient, that there was something really wrong with me. And okay, so I'm going to just be honest here and just say, I just went through a lot of years plagued by self-hatred. I mean, I just could not get behind myself. I mean, the idea that I could befriend myself was just beyond my ability to grasp. I mean, and, just so much disappointment with life. And, I went through a really hard season, and it wasn't short.
Yeah.
I mean, and I still have moments, honestly, where I struggle to find, it's not self-hatred anymore, but it can be a little bit of contempt, And some
of that was probably at the root of what you've openly talked about with your addictions, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. A way to manage that.
Yeah, that was a big piece of it. But that is from an old story.
And you title your old story,
Lost Boy.
Lost Boy.
Yeah.
And so moving to the new story,
which is Redeemed Man.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I think the journey, though, so everyone's clear, it's got fits and starts, It's not like I've arrived completely.
Right.
It's like But I've traveled many, many miles.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you say, and this might be an encouragement to everyone, but as a record producer, one of the things I like to do is help an artist create a record that they can grow into. And so, you're titling something that not necessarily says everything that you presently are, but something that you're growing into, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as I've said before, the stories are always unfolding, right? We're not a novel where there's a tight beginning and end, right?
Right,
It's like, this is an unfolding story, right? Until we die. I have to say this about Forrest. I think the journey for them, obviously, is from their passion of envy to the virtue of equanimity. Now, I want to make it also clear that that's one dimension of the journey. When I talk about the transition from passion to virtue, that's just one piece of the journey of healing.
Okay.
Right? It doesn't summarize the total journey.
Right.
Like, I had to do a lot more than just develop equanimity. But equanimity was a really important antidote to envy in my life. And that feeling of like, and I know I've mentioned this, I don't know if I did in the last town hall, but that sympathetic joy. It's this ability to feel joy when you see others succeed and have a life that anybody would perhaps want, you know what I mean? But I have my own life. Right. I don't have to envy that life. I don't have to compare myself all the time and feel like my life is a disappointment relative to others. And it's also realizing, hey, you know what, man? Like, everybody suffers. Everyone has suffered in this life. And my suffering is not special. Yeah. It's not. It's, within 5 miles of here, there's a ton of people who have felt the same feelings that I've had.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's taking the specialness and the uniqueness out of your own pain.
Yeah.
It's like saying, guess what, man? Get in line. Which
four, that's important.
Yeah, that's really important. So fives.
Yeah.
I think fives begin to realize in their new story that, running into the inner sanctum of their mind, will not provide them with the safety that they think it will, right? It will not prevent them from facing the draining demands and the intrusions of the world, right? And so as they move from avarice, which is their passion, to non-attachment, and what I mean by non-attachment is that they would let go of their attachment to those strategies, all the strategies they used to isolate and distance themselves from others. Okay? Just to let go of them. No longer attach themselves to them. So they're not doing things like minimizing their needs all the time or limiting the amount of time they spend with other people or, hoarding knowledge or privacy and personal information and physical space, right? In that new story, they no longer have this scarcity mindset. That's just, there's not enough. There's just not enough out there. And they get in touch with the abundance of things. And here's a mystical idea, the interconnectedness of all things. Right, the interconnectedness. Now, loyalists, when they jettison the old story, they begin to realize that life is filled with both danger and safety, joy and sorrow, security and loss. And in that new story, they begin to let go of the passion of fear, and they find the virtue of faith. Now, I want to be careful and just say that when I talk about faith, I'm a person who hails from a more Christian tradition. So that means one thing there. But let's say someone's listening who doesn't self-identify that way. So what I mean by that is that, I mean it in the sense that, like in a 12-step recovery program, that for those folks who don't self-identify as Christians, it's this belief in a higher power that possesses more love and power to help them manage life in this, scary world. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think when that happens, they trust themselves more, right? They trust that they can make decisions. They can, without having to always be looking around for support.
Yeah. So some of that is faith in yourself, right? For the 6, they do need to trust themselves.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Now, enthusiasts, man, I feel like one of the things that enthusiasts often feel is this feeling of deprivation. It's this feeling like they're always being deprived of something, so they have to keep grabbing for more and more and more and more. So it's relinquishing that feeling of deprivation that's around them all the time, right? And so then the inflamed desire for intellectual stimulation or adventures or, new experiences and ideas, right? It's kind of cooled, right? It's not on fire anymore. And they're learning to live in the truth of the here and now. And realizing that when they have distressing emotions, when they face pain, when they face, difficult circumstances or thoughts, that there will be people there to support them. Because I think one of the messages in the old story of the seven, for I don't know where it begins, I think it's different for everybody, is I'm on my own and no one, if I'm going to get my needs met, I'm going to have to take care of it myself.
Right.
So that's, the journey. I think then it makes sense that they're going to move from gluttony to sobriety. And I don't quite know what to make of the word sobriety sometimes for sevens. But
what's another word you would use for it or phrase?
Maybe moderation.
Okay.
To moderate their gluttony. It's like they need a governor.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, governor.
So that's an important thing for them. And also know that God is there. God is present.
That they're not alone.
Yeah, we're told, especially, think about the book of Isaiah. We have a suffering God. And so, just to know that when I suffer, God suffers with me.
That's beautiful.
It's really important for them.
All right, 8s?
Yeah, man. All right. So 8s, when they've learned how to own the passion of lust that has controlled them, they begin to realize that they no longer have to move against other people. They can move bravely toward them with an undefended heart. I was with our friend Michael Cusick on a weekend, right? And I was, serving as a group therapist on a weekend he does. And he said something in a large group talk that stuck with me. He said, it's so much more powerful if you lead with weakness than strength. And I remember thinking, wow, say that again? He said, lead with your weaknesses, not your strengths, because there is strength in the weakness.
Wow.
There is strength in vulnerability.
Yeah.
There is strength in sharing your undefended heart. Right? And that's something that 8s have to learn as they move from lust to the virtue of innocence. Right? Oof. And so that's for 8s.
That's moving.
Yeah, let's go to 9s.
Okay.
Here's an obvious one. I think peacemakers in the larger story of God simply know that they're important to the world. They just know they're important to the world. That muting their voice and their presence is not serving anyone. They were invited to this party for a reason.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Gosh, that's good.
And so, to live into a solid sense of self, and to present a solid self is part of the journey that they have to make, from sloth to right action. And, they don't shuffle anymore through the world in that passion of sloth. And they invest in their own self-development. They learn, and we're going to talk about this on a future date, and it's in this week's newsletter that's going out actually today. It is about assertiveness, how to assert themselves in the world. And then it's not like they're going to lose their peaceful, tranquil presence. It's just going to mean that it's going to have a floor underneath it that's strong. Yeah. Right?
I love that.
You know who has this, by the way, is my daughter, Maddie.
Okay.
Maddie.
Talk about that some.
Maddie has some strength. She is a 9, but she's learned through numerous experiences. Like I always say, when Maddie breaks up with you, now she's married now, but when you were dating Maddie back in the old days, you knew when she broke up with you.
Right.
Now, an unhealthy 9, the person could leave. You wouldn't know you just got broken up with. You'd be like, someone else would leave going, did she just break up with me? I'm not sure.
Right.
But Maddie's like, nope, compassion and clarity.
Yeah.
How, be compassionate and be clear.
Yeah.
So she has a solid sense of self but she's maintained that tranquil posture.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Love that. All right, so let's talk about the homework.
Yeah. So last time the homework was come with the name or the title of your old story, like as if it were a memoir. And this time, come with the name of the new story, the true story.
Oh, this is
the
awesome.
story that you want to live in adulthood as a 7, as a 6, as a 2, as a 1, whatever, and just begin to share. Like, all right, this is what I want my name to. This is what I want my story to be, and then maybe even describe. Well, how is it different? And like, what would it? How would it be? How would it form a new person in you? Right? What's the vision for that life?
Yeah, love that. And I want to encourage everyone to come prepared, because we're just going to jump in with Q&A when we start the town hall.
Yeah.
We're just going to ask people what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, for a couple of months now, we've been not, rehashing what we've done on this.
Yeah.
We're just assuming that everybody has listened to the podcast.
So
right?
we get more time with the people.
Get more time with my peeps.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We love you. And do we have any other announcements for them?
Let's remind everyone that you dropped your book, your brand new book, on December 28th. It's been out about a month now. We're getting great responses and reviews. And we just want to encourage everyone to share the word. If you haven't gotten the book, go get the book. It's also on Audible, but share it with your friends and family. Anything else, Ian?
What would be helpful is if people left a review for the Typology podcast on Apple, because one of the things I'm learning, now after a gajillion times doing this, is that Apple has an algorithm, and when someone pumps in Enneagram, if the show that has the most reviews is actually the one they point to.
Right.
So it's just a way of helping people find us.
Yeah. So if you would just go in and hit the 5 stars for us, that would be amazing. If you feel so inclined, and if you type in a little review, that would be fantastic too. We really appreciate it.
Love you, Anthony.
Love you, brother.
Love all you out there too. Peace.
Love to you all. See ya.